Hello, grade 9. Today is our subject in music in Mapeh 9 in your series. My name is Mr. Rinaldo B. Malimban. Our lesson for today is all about the music of Western and Eastern countries. In the music of Western and Eastern countries, music play important role in activities of all people. It has been the companion of religious ceremonies and various functions in the people lives from the birth of death. It was combined with the dance and drama to give rise to the expanded forms of communications. In the beginning, music was connection with the various functions such as a religious rituals. Now, what are the history of Western music? The history of Western music is the tonal organizations of Western music in its history. In the theory was developed in the Greece several centuries before the Christian era. The liturgical music of the early Christian church was the chant, which was the song to monophonic and unmetrical melodies. So among the Greeks of music was part of their everyday life, marriage, funeral rites, and the banquet of ceremonies and the sport events. Next is the musical forms and the style. In the Western music, the musical developed started during the different periods. It was during the middle of age the elements of distinguish the Western music from the other musical culture first arose. In the early Greek, Roman music has been monophonic, that is limited to single melodic line. Now, the musical development started during the different periods. One is the medieval era, 2 the Renaissance, 3 the classical era, 4 the romantic period. Now take note of this 4 musical development started during the different periods last time. Now let us proceed to the Eastern music or the non-Western culture. According to the Eastern music or the non-Western culture, first is the religious of Asia. Second is the roles and the limitations. The third is the improvisation was usually based on the traditional melodic phrase and rhythm and the pattern. Next is the music and culture. In the music culture, the Eastern music reflects, expresses even the diversity of the world, language, religious from the world language, and the tradition. Now, the music of Eastern countries offers the wide range of listening, experience, and cultural insights that the music of closely linked with the religious dance and drama, and it can be both by entertainment and unaccompanied by the everyday activities in ceremonies. Music is used to communicate message and relate tradition. Now, in the most Western culture, singing in the main way of the making music. Each culture has characteristic instruments, performance, practices, the tonal system, the melodic, and the rhythmic pattern. It's also included by the musical culture in the social and economic system. Now, the Eastern music is transmitted through the tradition. Most of the music is the monophonic or the single melodic, or if it is performed by the symbols in the style known as the heterophony, in which several instruments by simultaneously play the versions of the same melody. Now, each culture has the characteristics of instruments. Music in culture, also the religious music traditions of Judaism and the Christianity and the tradition of the Islam. And then the religious services like the Hebrew cantillations, Christian liturgical chant, and the Islamic chant of the Korean and the Muslim prayers. Now let us give the history music in India. The Indian classical music is based on the system of melodic moods called ragas that is used by intervals close to the Western music in the set of complex of rhythmic attached to the chords of caliphs, sultans, and sheikhs. Islamic music develops to the genres which they include of the vocal and the instrumental. And these are the music of India by their musical instruments. Like the example of the Shahnai. It is instrument of oboe, the wind instruments. The sitar, the large lute, a part of the string instruments. And the saragi, a burst, just like also the string instruments. Another the music of India is the sarod. A sarod is a short neck lute, and the tabla, a set of drums. It's a percussion instruments. Now let's move on in the music in Indonesia. The most famous classical music of Indonesia is the gamelan music of Java and the Bali. Now in the gamelan are built in a two-tone system. The one is the slendro and the two is the pelog. Slendro is the light tones shared equally through the sector, and the pelog also more closely approximate the Western scale. Now these are the examples of the musical instruments in Indonesia. One is the kulintang, a set of 8 knob gongs. It's a part of the percussion instruments. Next is the robab, a lute, the example of the string instruments. Next is the kendang. It is two-headed drum, a part of the percussion instruments. And the last is the rebana. It is a round drum, a part of the musical instrument in the percussions. Let's proceed to the Tibet. The traditional music of Tibet consists of 3 types: folk music or the peasant, and a kind of art music in religious music of Buddhist monasteries. The history of music in Mongolia. Mongolia music exhibits influence from the China, the Middle East, and the tribal North Asia with the instruments from the region. Then next move the music in China. China, various periods of the Chinese history produced different genres, instruments, and attitudes toward music equivalent of Western culture. There are some of the equivalent, the proximity of the Western culture. Such of the characteristic of Chinese music are the use of pentatonic scales without half tones, and some of characteristic is the development of musical piece, the great emphasis of the music drama or opera, the development of orchestra similar to the gamelan of Indonesia, a tense of nasal, harsh sounding singing style, and some characteristic of attributions of cosmological significance to the music or to the precise tuning of the musical instruments. And this is the example of the Chinese instruments. Next, let's proceed to the music in Korea. The traditional Korean music includes of folk, vocal, religious, and ritual music styles of the Korean people. Korean and Japanese music are output of the Chinese musical cultures, but they also have their independent musical tradition and style. And this is the example of the musical instrument in Korea. Next, let us proceed to the history, the music in Japan. The music of Japan includes a wide array of performers, a distinct styles, both traditional and modern. The word of music in the Japanese is ongako, combining the kanji on sound with the kanji goko. It means in the English form of enjoy. The Japanese music consists of variety of styles and relax of influence by the Korea, Mongolia, even the Indian Buddhist culture. Korean music has less of similarity to the Chinese music. And these are the example of the Japanese instruments in Japan. Thank you, kids. That's all for today. For more updates, please monitor our e-class online learning system. Thank you and goodbye. Again, I'm your teacher in Mapeh 9, Mr. Reynaldo B. Malimban. Keep safe.